When I started to post about Gaza at the beginning, I had a really big brand deal and it was life-changing deal. And they canceled it because I was uploading things about Gaza. And I don't doubt for a second that I was doing the right thing.
Today we have René Pérez Joglar, better known as Residente. After losing major partnerships for speaking out about Gaza, he doubled down, turning stages into platforms for the voiceless.
Little by little, I started to understand what was happening. I was able to go to Palestine to finally see a little bit of the situation. I started to understand even more. And after that, right away, started the bombings and killing families and families and families. And I was like, it's impossible not to say something. So I started to talk about it.
You say you want your country to be independent. Do you see the same empire behind Puerto Rico's colonization and Palestine's occupation?
While I was traveling with all of these travelings and going back to my country, I see everything even clearer. I know that the independence is the best thing for my country. You don't have a roof. You can negotiate with other countries, not just one, and you are in total control.
The whole thing about Palestine is it's about self-determination. And it sounds to me a lot like you're talking about you should have the right to determine. And that's why, to me, the struggles are so similar.
There is a difference between Palestine and Puerto Rico. The colonization of Puerto Rico is not only physical, it's also mentally, and that's the difference. And now it's starting to change.
Do you feel lonely in this fight sometimes?
Yeah, the worst was to see.
Welcome back to Out Loud, where we have conversations with people who refuse to look away, people who use art and truth to challenge power and remind us what it means to stand with the oppressed. Today's guest is someone I've admired for a long, long time, not just for his music, but for his courage. René Pérez Joglar, aka Residente, is a Grammy-winning rapper and poet from Puerto Rico who's turned protest into poetry and also pain into rhythm. Over the last 2 years, while most celebrities stayed silent on Palestine, Residente has made it central to his message. He's even collaborated with Palestinian artists, canceled concerts, and brought refugee families on stage, transforming stadiums into spaces. I've been going to Puerto Rico since I was 17, and in many ways, it's felt like a second home. I was there during Hurricane Maria. It's really an honor and deeply necessary to speak with one of Puerto Rico's most powerful voices about justice, resistance, and what it means to speak truth out loud. Thank you so much for being with me.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I want to talk to you about a lot of things, but let's start with Gaza. I mean, you've been one of the loudest, clearest voices in the music world, calling attention to what's happening, to the genocide. You released Bajo los Escombros with a Palestinian singer, with Ahmed. You said, I see my son in each of the massacred children. Can you just share with us why this matters so much to you and what you meant by that?
When everything started, not right now, before, years before, I was very connected to what was happening in Palestine. I passed through different phases because of all of the information that we get from the US and from other countries, and the way they portray Arabs, in America. And when I say America, it's not only the US, the whole continent.
Yeah, the real America.
Yeah, and including the Caribbean. Little by little, I started to understand what was happening. I was able to go to Palestine like in 2014, I think. And I went to Bethlehem and I shoot a video there, and I work with Palestinians, and I had the opportunity to connect a little bit with the culture while I was staying there. A great moment for me, to finally see closer a little bit of the situation, and the guards from Israel, they were in checkpoints. Little by little, I started to understand even more and more and more. And when everything started to happen, I couldn't stay without saying anything about it. Like it was horrible, all of the images that I saw. So I said a message on October 7th, but very human message about not killing people and that, without blaming
Sides,
someone,
yeah, in the context,
because you don't know, and it's not clear, like that, and the fact that they were changing so many times the news. Oh, at first it was that they were cutting heads, then it wasn't true, then and there were a lot of fake news around the situation that I waited for a bit. And waited meant that, I don't know, like after that, right away started the bombings and killing families and families and families and families and I was like, it's impossible not to say something. So I started to talk about it and to show images on the stories, because no one, like not too many people in Latin America, they were talking about that.
If I can just quickly say, I mean, on that point, Renee, you also released a powerful video with a track that was shot in New York, rapping with a keffiyeh, backed by traditional Palestinian musicality and instruments. And it's rare, as you just said, to see a Latin artist center Palestine in this way, very authentically. So I'm just curious, were you surprised by the response from fans or people in the industry, or has anything surprised you? Because you've been consistent and you've been connecting with Palestine, not just as a political news story, but the culture. You know, you released the song, as I said, the collaboration with Amal Murqus. I mean, she had to flee Palestine, and some of the musicians you worked with were recording in Gaza while they were being bombed. You know, what's it like for you doing this, and why is this important?
No, for me, it was super important to include a song related to what was happening in Gaza on my album, because it was something that was happening at the moment, and I was getting affected by it, even though that I'm super far away from the situation. Like I really wanted to talk about it, and yeah, like I, as you said in the beginning, like I saw my son there too. Like I put myself in their position, and that's what happens to me most of the time, that I put myself in other people's shoes to talk about different situations. I did a video in Palestine in 2014, did a song about Palestine. Exactly, I mentioned it in one of my first songs, that it was a huge hit, and it was a total mistake, because the way I mentioned it wasn't, it was bad, because it was kind of like using the cliches of the Arab world in one of the sentences. So that's why, like now I cancel that, not the song but the whole verse, or the phrase completely, and then I did a video talking about it, explaining how media in America and the whole continent show you or teach you how to think about a particular country, or about a particular political situation.
Yeah, it's the dehumanization, right? Like Arabs are something to be feared. For me, I'm not trying to tie the two things together, but really spending so many months over so many years in Puerto Rico in the context of living in the US and, being American but not American. I don't know, for me, there was such a deep connection to that struggle, that people's struggle. And I don't want to over talk about it, but I guess at a time when there's a ceasefire, it's easy for people to think it's time to move on. I mean, you put yourself out there when you criticize, the Latin Grammys for not saying a single word about Palestine. You also said artists shouldn't be afraid, but there is real fears. So why do you think it's so important for Latin American and Caribbean artists to take a stand on this? Is it important?
In Latin America, we struggle a lot. And a lot of times we need support from other countries, because we struggle a lot. We should understand each other and understand that put ourselves in those situations, and also without fear, being able to understand other countries, and think that maybe that way they will understand our countries and our situations. It's not that you're doing it because you want to exchange that help of talking about your country's situations. But yeah, if you're asking for people to put themselves in your political situation and talk about it, you should do the same.
And out of all the things you talk about, whether you talk about Palestine or not, you often talk about US imperialism, or you talk about capitalism and you connect it to systems that dehumanize. Do you think people are finally starting to understand how all these struggles are linked? You link them through your music. Do you feel that there's been a shift, not just in you? You spoke about your own shift, but in the public.
It's changing little by little. But just to tell you, like I like when I talk about the United States, I don't use the words like the terms of systems, like capitalist or imperialism. I don't use those words because they're always connected, even though they can be true, they're connected to a group. And then it takes me, I know why I don't use those words, but it's not because it's not true. It's because I don't want to be segregated in a
Be
corner
grouped into, yeah, I understand that.
and I'm not saying that that group is wrong. It's just that I try to always say it in a different way so people from other ideologies can understand better, because I'm a pro-independence. I want the independence of my country because I think it's the best in a lot of ways. I'm not against the people of the U.S. I'm against the government and how they treated Puerto Rico and other countries in the history of, of, of the world. Like they've been treating like other countries too, like big, powerful countries. They always did bad to smaller countries. And taking it from there, that thought, like, I've been very careful with how I try to put that message out so I can connect with not the people that likes my thoughts and my ideas, but the people that doesn't understand that. And I think that by doing that, yeah, I've seen change, but it's very difficult, But I've seen that now, uh, at least towards the country, in Puerto Rico, I seen change, and I see there's a huge change towards what's happening in Palestine and in Gaza. Like before, it wasn't like this. Now everything flipped and is different. Now, at least you can talk about it. But it took a lot of people in the first line to take the shot and be canceled. Like I had that situation when I started to post about Gaza at the beginning. I had a really big deal, a huge deal that I wanted to make, and a brand deal, and it was life changing deal, and they canceled it because I was uploading things about Gaza, and they did it at first. They didn't admit it. Then they admitted it, and it was around October, November that they told me at the end that they were canceling, and I was like, man, but we've been working on this for 2 years. They canceled that.
How did that affect you, if you feel comfortable sharing? Because I'm sure there's maybe some regret, or maybe it just makes you feel like you're doing the right thing, or maybe, you know what I mean? Because whether they're doing something wrong or right, does it make you doubt speaking out? I mean, we're only human, right?
I don't doubt for a second that I was doing the right thing. Also explaining to my son what's happening because he understands what's happening. He's 11, he's very intelligent. So I talked to him about it. And I was like, yeah, sometimes when you receive like critics from people, they gaslight you in a way that you kind of question yourself if you're doing the right thing. And then I say, of course, like how it's going to be wrong to defend and talk against what's happening, that they're killing kids, families, mothers. That's never right. It doesn't matter what happened. It's never right. And imagine they gaslight you in a way that you feel that oh, maybe it's wrong, and it's no, it's not wrong. It's the total opposite. I pass through different feelings. Of course, I understand that the fact that they canceled that is very important. It was very important for me. It's not even close to what people are suffering, and I'm like, like, yeah, I'm gonna keep going doing this. I don't care. And then I stopped my album from coming out.
I was gonna say, yeah. in 2023 you delayed the release because you called it a genocide and said everything should stop, right?
For me, it was impossible to put something out like that. And then, I know that it lasted more and more, but at that time it was so even like harder and harder, and for me harder to understand, that I couldn't put it out because of myself. And sometimes I know that people can think, oh, is that's very easy, like you just stop the album. No, man, I stopped a lot of things that it takes a lot to do it. And the reason why I'm saying this is not for people to say, oh, what a good guy that he did it. No, it's because even if you feel that is gonna destroy something, like, you should go ahead and do what you feel when something is unfair and unjust and horrible, like what was happening in Gaza. You have to go all the way. And I was like, yeah, I stopped it. And the label was very nice to understand. They say, okay, they have a thousand other artists, so yeah. And affects your career, affects everything. It affected everything on for 2 years, but that doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. You have to do it, and I did it. And then I was able, thanks to that, to make a song also about Palestine and put it on the album, because I thought that it was important.
I hope you feel it's not lost on those of us who Palestine is our identity. It's not your identity, it's not Jewish people's identity, or I guess it is on the inverse, but people who stand up, people like myself and my friends, that's what we were talking about before we recorded. People who see people like you who have not just big followings, but following people who support your work because of what your work represents. So when people like you do delay the album, do speak out, do encourage others to speak out, I just want to take a quick moment and tell you, when I was in my deepest, because I didn't have an album to delay, but I felt like everything was on delay, Renee. Like everything in my life was on delay. And I guess what I'm saying is thank you so much. And I hope people listening understand. And this is what I want to ask you about. I mentioned I've been going to Puerto Rico since I was 17. And when I was there during Hurricane Maria, the kind of despair, the abandonment, for me, what I saw was colonial violence, but like in a different time zone, in slow motion. And I don't want to use these terms like imperialism, colonialism to be put in a box either. But I want to keep it real with you. I mean, you say you think you want your country to be independent. Do you see the same empire behind Puerto Rico's colonization and Gaza's occupation or Palestine's occupation? What's changed most in your relationship to Puerto Rico as you've traveled the world, and how has it changed how you feel about your own struggles?
Well, I see it, everything. It's even more clear to me. While I was traveling with all of these travelings and going back to my country, I see everything even clearer. I know that the independence is the best thing for my country. If you wanna see it not as a without the soul and all of the spirit that I feel about my country. If you see it as a business, which is the worst way to see it, but for some people, that's the most important thing. If you see it as a business, it's better to be independent. You don't have a roof. You can negotiate with other countries, not just one. You can negotiate the tax rates that you have in the country because they're bad. Like, you can do so many things different, and you are in total control of the business. You have to be in total control of that business of Puerto Rico. And we're not in control at all. Like, we don't have any control. We can't decide anything. It's horrible. And I see the people thinking that it's better because they think that by being associated with the
Yeah,
United
stability,
States, it's
security somehow on paper.
and it's not about thinking because they connect pro-independence people with not liking the US. I like the US. I'm against what the government have done to the country and to Latin America. But there's things that are good also here. And and I don't think that, oh, if I'm independent, I'm gonna stop dealing with US. No, like we open the doors to other people, and if the US wants to do something, we can say no. Like now we can't. We have to say yes to
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
they
It's
say.
a strangle.
And
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the, the whole thing about Palestine is it's about self-determination. And it sounds to me a lot like you're talking about you think you should have the right to determine those things that you can control about your country, about the land you're from, right? And that's why to me the struggles are so similar. And I want to shift gears a bit because we speak about this important stuff, and that's what your work is about in a lot of ways, but you also bring a lot of joy to people at a time of darkness. Your music alone, I mean, you've turned concerts, from what I've seen, sadly I haven't been to the one in Mexico City, but I think there were like 180,000, 200,000 people chanting Free Palestine. I saw the videos. You brought a Palestinian refugee family on stage. And, I've seen in Barcelona the same. You're bringing Palestinian musicians to play with you. I mean, transforming these physical stages into spaces of what I would say is resilience, resistance, music. Do you plan these moments? Do they happen naturally between you and the crowd?
I don't plan anything. But before going there, I just remembered something, and I'm sorry to change a little bit the subject. Is that there is a difference between Palestine and Puerto Rico, of course, in not only in the horrible things that happen in Gaza in comparison to what happened in Puerto Rico, but in terms of colonization, the colonization of Puerto Rico is not only physical, it's also mentally, and that's the difference from Palestinians and Puerto Ricans. We have people who believe in the independence, but there's a lot of people already colonized mentally, and a lot, like a lot, and now it's starting to change. But I see people that wants to be in Palestine and fight for their country, and in Puerto Rico, you have it, but not in a big scale. Now it's starting to change. You
Why do you
have
think it's
Benito.
starting to change? Why do you think it's starting?
It's been so much and so much of living with these governments of stealing and corruption and connected to the US, and for so long and so long that newer generations have seen it, and they keep seeing it. And also because the education is manipulated since we were born, like we get the education that people from the US want, and we don't get too many of our history in our uh, classes, in school. So like it's been like a process of the colonization have been here since 1898, and little by little that have been changing and changing and changing, and now you have like 33% voted for something different the last elections, and Benito was part of it, and me and Ricky and a lot of people started to get united. Artists started to speak up, and I think the newer generations are going to change the country. Like not everyone, like there's a lot of people who wants to be a state in Puerto Rico. It's not that we're fighting against colonialism all together. No, it's very divided.
But by the way, Renee, Palestine also has some people whose minds are colonized. Divide and conquer is a mentality that is at the foundation of colonialism. And when you internalize where the bar is, okay, maybe we can compromise basic human rights so long as they just stop killing us, or whatever it might be. I mean, obviously, Puerto Rico and Palestine are different, but I think the colonization of the mind and internalizing it is real, sadly, in Palestine as well. Maybe not in the same way. These things where I read on Twitter, concerts in performances in Spain canceled because the festival is tied to the Israeli military. Like, are these true? And why do you think these small decisions matter?
That concert for me, I wasn't gonna do that. It's a concert they offer me in Mexico, and I was done with concerts, but I thought to myself, if I do it, I would like, and I asked them, I would like to make it about Palestine because that's what's happening. And they told me, yeah, you can do everything. And I ask for people to bring flags and everything. So I did that, and I planned that in that way, like I wanted to. It was my concert, but I wanted to make it about Palestine, not about me, and talk about the a lot of other situations, and that's what I did. So the answer is, yeah, I planned part of it, because otherwise I don't know if I wanted to do it right now. And then going back to the question that you asked me about, in Spain, and that I canceled these concerts. Yeah, like I did it, and it
That's a
was
huge
real.
move. Like in my
It it
eyes, that's a huge move.
it was very difficult, because like when you do tours, and people musicians, they know, like sometimes you have shows that are gonna help you pay other stuff, like for the rest of the tour. And I had like 14 shows or something. But these shows that I canceled were the shows that they were paying the most, but a lot, like crazy a lot, that it was helping me to do everything. And because of the cancellation, I ended up paying to perform the last shows, like 4 or 5 shows, and I didn't earn anything. Like it was, but I didn't care, and I was. I'm not saying it all again
No,
for
no, I feel
people.
you. I can tell the motivation behind why you're
it's
sharing.
it's it's for me, it was impossible to do a festival. When I learned about the festival, I was like, no, I can't do this. And all the people in my team, hey, Rene, but the accountants, like everyone, like, you can't do this. And I told them, and I remember a message that I sent them, telling them, I'm sorry, like I'm sorry, I know you have other artists, and that they are easier to work with, like, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I can do this now. And they're my friends too. And they told me, no worries, we have your back. Let's go. So I did that. And after I did that, I got letters of, like, they wanted to sue me, the festivals. And I was like, I was seeing the letters and say, let's go. Like, I'm not scared. So after that, I did my message, and I said, they can do whatever, and I don't care. And then I sent it to some people and friends, and they told me, bro, we have a big people backing you up. So do whatever you want in terms of, like, cancel everything, because we have your back. So I did, and I felt it a little bit more sure, but I was already doing it. I did the message, before knowing that I was gonna have a backup. And it was very difficult, but not as difficult as, the things that people pass through in life. A lot of the things, for me, was okay. I'm gonna cancel this. That's why I feel that I don't know why other artists don't do it, because yeah, it's difficult, but there's things that are way more difficult.
If people don't have to pay a price for someone else, maybe many people wouldn't. We live in a world where profit really can color, habits, profit, pattern, lifestyle. Even if it's not conscious, we're just in this motion, and sometimes we lose sight of, oh, if we pay a small price temporarily, we all gain so much.
For me, the worst was to see other musicians that went to the festival to talk about Palestine. And I was like, bro, like, you're going to a festival that is using that money, precisely that money, to buy weapons, to go bomb people. How dare you go to the festival and start talking about Palestine? Like, it's the most crazy thing that I saw. And people that I admire, people from the hip hop community, people that I like, because it's very difficult sometimes, that line, to put the line and say, you know what, this is my line. Some people don't do that, and some people think it's easy. No, it's not easy. I know it's difficult, but that's the difference between, having a human heart, and being an artist for real, feeling people, and being honest with yourself. Because it's very easy to, yeah, I go to the festival, I take the money, and then I talk about it. It's like, what? Like, no, it's not. It's good that you're talking about Palestine, but I think that you have to do the whole thing. Like, otherwise, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I thought that more people were gonna cancel, and it's like the same story. I go with the stone. Let's go. Let's throw the rock over there, the stone, and then when you see, you look back and you're alone there, and everyone is there,
I
and
was just gonna say, do you feel lonely in this fight sometimes the way I do? I mean, or are you seeing more and more artists who are aware of what art means and rising to the occasion of standing for something?
in Latin America, a little bit, yeah. I got a lot of hate from, especially from Argentina, at a moment. Then everything started to change, and I was telling them like, man, this is, trust me, in 10 years you're gonna be ashamed of what you're doing. And other artists, I stopped following them. Like I don't talk to them anymore. Like I lost a lot of friends because of this. People, colleagues that are my friends, that they were saying they're my friends, and they started criticizing me. There is a hotel that I used to stay all the time from Argentina, a big brand, and I stopped going because the guy sent me a message, and then I text him back. Never gonna go back again to that hotel. And I'm being very political in this, in the sense that I'm not mentioning the company that canceled this contract and the hotel, because I can, but I don't want to. I'm being polite. It was very bad, and I think that now I feel that there are more artists, and in music, in film, man, you see, for example, Javier Bardem, you see Mark Ruffalo, you see a lot of, so many people that are like understanding what's happening and going forward with this, that I feel like, I feel happy that this is starting to happen, because it took years and years and years.
A lot of people who may not know you may not know that you openly talk about, you know, life as someone who has ADHD, who has autism. I have ADHD, and that you see the world differently, maybe more intensely. At least I feel like I experience the world intensely. And then I also know one of your songs, Mis Disculpas, you even kind of talk about being an anarchist in the sense of, conscience, not chaos necessarily. These parts of you, Renee, you know, I've always been curious, as someone who has ADHD, you are a father, someone who sort of rejects systems of control. It seems to me your empathy is a big reason why you did take these steps, to send a message by not working with people who are directly complicit. I mean, do you think your art is a form of rebellion? Like, does this give you strength to be so open about this aspect of your life, or does it kind of make it more challenging?
To be open about what, about my ADHD, or
Yeah, your ADHD, and also not just that, but sort of being willing. People say, for example, your principles, politics, whatever you want to call it. I hate the word politics, but people say, politics and art shouldn't mix. And yet you're living very openly about who you are, what you believe in, that you have these things like ADHD. And I just wonder, does that make you, do you see that as like a strength? Because we do live in a time when there are consequences for living your truth, not just speaking your truth.
no, for me, art is, it's connected to be honest. You like like you have to be honest, while you make art. I think that it's very connected to that, to honesty. And yeah, like I don't know, like I'm very honest with what I feel and what I put out, related to those feelings, in every way. If I feel sad, I'm gonna talk about it. If I feel mad about what's happening in a country, I'm gonna talk about it. I think that art is that. Otherwise, if you control that, what you put out, in a way, trying to I don't know, to be careful because people are gonna get mad, or then you're just trying to sell something, but you're not being completely honest, and you're not. I don't know. I don't think you're doing art. You're doing something else. I'm not saying that art shouldn't be sold. Like I think that you're
Of course,
selling
that's the
something.
way the
Is
world
is your
works. But
is
maybe
your
not the
job, but
priority. Maybe that's not what dictates what you do, the
that
form.
doesn't. It's never the priority for me. Never have been the priority, and I have everything that I have because I earn it, working triple, because of that, because I say things that cost me a lot of money at the end of the day.
But you know, integrity is really more valuable than I think people realize, dude. Honestly, as a currency in this world we live in, I think it go. You know, I lost so many friends. I lost colleagues who I almost lost my life with. You know, in war zones, people who I respected and assumed wouldn't be so willing to just put their head down and not say anything, even though the situation for me and for so many people, including you, as you said, at certain points was just unbearable. Genocide should never be bearable. And it does happen all over the world, but not in this way. Not with such, you know, for me, that's how I feel about it. I'm reflecting my own opinions, but you know, I just want to ask you, I mean, is there advice you'd give to a younger artist who looks up to you, maybe, who is just as passionate about their own struggle, about justice movements, but maybe they're more scared to speak out about Gaza, about Congo, about any issue, even Puerto Rico?
I think that you have to be honest. That's what I think. Honest with yourself. And if you don't know about the topic, be honest too and say, I don't know about this topic. I have to read more and read and learn. But you have to be honest. That's honesty is it's like the way in art. Like that's the way you work in art. Like when you see an actor and you put the camera there and it doesn't feel honest, you don't believe in the actor, right? You watch the movie and say, oh, that's bad acting because it's not honest. The same with a painting. You see a painting and you can feel it. And when you talk to the artist and you see his soul there, it's honesty. The same way with music. When you make songs, when you do it with honesty. That's the way of doing everything. And if you're honest with yourself and something that is political is affecting you, you have to talk about it because you have to be honest because you write about the things that you affect that affect you as an artist. So I think honesty is the thing that I will tell young people to work with. You know.
It's also a thing that we need more of in this world, socially and politically, and maybe even culturally. I'm curious what's next for you. I know you're always doing so much, but any collaborations or sort of certain music that we can look forward to?
I'm working in a few projects at the same time, but a music project that I have on the side that is gonna be a surprise for later. But now I'm working on my movie, on my first film, it's already written and it's already packaged. I have all of the actors, almost all of them together, and I'm just working on that. I'm gonna do it independently. It's a big film.
What's it about?
Uh, it's about Puerto Rico, so you will see. It's my dream of my life. My dream wasn't to be a rapper or an artist in the sense of making music. My dream wasn't that. My dream was to make films and to do everything, to make music, film. So I'm doing this, and I think it's going to be a very important movie. I think for Puerto Rico.
You've spoken about how choosing indifference is the enemy of art, right? Art has to be honest. You have to feel something. In a world where artists are getting punished for truth, after everything you've been through, where do you find in your day to day hope? Is it people around you? Is it music? Or is it in something bigger?
In the younger generations, I find hope. There's going to be people that thinks different. That doesn't mean that they're bad. He talks a lot about their education level and and me also, I have to educate myself a lot to understand other things and other people. But I see a lot of hope in my, when I see my son understanding complicated things that I couldn't understand when I was 11. I see hope. When I see Benito doing a residencia in Puerto Rico, dedicating that to Puerto Rico, I see hope. Uh, when I see musicians from Puerto Rico performing outside, like musicians that they're not worldwide known, playing, performing in NPR or in other places, and I feel hope. Uh, yeah, like there is a lot of hope in the world, and I see it. When I see people protesting right now against what happened in Gaza, and I see huge, massive demonstrations against what's happening. I see hope.
I think we have to end on hope, especially these days. So I want to thank you for your wisdom, for your time. And honestly, I can't say it enough. If you ever had doubt that the choices you're making and the things that you're saying in your music matter, they matter to me, they matter to so many other people as well. And I feel that. And so I hope you do too. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man.